Now we come to the last speaker of the day, Shri Ishwar Dev Khandal. He is the senior journalist of Nepal. In his professional career of over 20 years, he has constantly endeavored to situate himself at the helm of professionalism. After working for print media for more than 10 years and 7 years in TV news channel, he ventured into online journalism. He is presently the editor of the Khabar Hub of Nepal. He is a highly traveled journalist who has been the assistant press and public outreach officer with the course of the European Union Election Observation Mission. He has also participated in the US State Department sponsored International Visitors Leadership Program in USA. Shri Khandal will speak on impact of China on Indo-Nepal relations. Over to Shri Khandal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. To begin with, let me cite a very recent example of the Chinese side, is trying to establish its footprint in Nepal. For example, the Chinese side wrote a letter to Nepal's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, mounting pressure to accept the vaccines, first under the condition that the details about the vaccines will be sent afterwards, a topsy-turvy way of vaccine procurement. So why I'm raising this issue is, let me add another point. I believe the reason, that since India recently provided 1 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine to Nepal, China too wanted to follow suit. To prove that, yes, we are with you during Nepal's difficult times. This is one of the Chinese strategies. In fact, China had been mounting pressure on Nepal and the government to various channels before also. However, now it has come, overtly. It no longer remains a secret as my online cover hub, we exposed its plans repeatedly, several times, with concrete evidence. So we have been reporting, Chinese activities, Chinese illegal activities in Nepal, and covert activities, everything we have been reporting what China is doing at the moment in Nepal here. Here, let me again cite an example, like Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on Friday, that means last Friday, held a telephone conversation with Pradeep Kumar Gyawali, Nepal's foreign minister, and piled pressure on him. Piled pressure, this is what we have quoted, to accept the vaccines, COVID vaccines, first under the condition that the details about the vaccines will be sent afterward, but you are required to accept those vaccines to you. Conversation between China's foreign minister and Nepal's foreign minister was concerned about the efficiency and effectiveness of the Chinese vaccines against COVID-19 sure to be provided to the government of Nepal by China. In fact, China said all necessary documents would be provided later, but Nepal must take the vaccine immediately. So this was in fact, putting pressure on the Nepalese government to accept the vaccines. Why? Because very recently, India has already sent 1 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. So, and basically the letter had a tone of a warning. Otherwise, Nepal may need to wait quite long to get the vaccine. I quote this sentence. This is in the letter sent by Chinese side to the Nepalese government, especially to the foreign affairs of Nepal. So it has also warned that the vaccines would be redistributed by other commercial orders, and the manufacturing of the vaccines for Nepal will have to be put on a much later list. So this is one instance how China mounts pressure on the government of Nepal, the political parties of Nepal. Warning comes at a time when India has already promised again 2 million COVID vaccines, another 2 million COVID vaccines by the UK. So as we all know, the Nepal's Department of Drug Administration has only allowed conditional emergency use of Covishield produced by the Serum Institute of India. So this is one instance of how China has been trying to establish its footprint. So this is one stance. Now let me cite another example of how China's sharp power in Nepal has come with massive propaganda, and national interest with implications for India's influence in the region, especially in our country, Nepal. Interestingly, it has started for the last 3 or 4 years, I would say, providing Mandarin classes to thousands of youngsters and students in the schools of Nepal. Even high schools, they have been providing Mandarin Chinese language classes in the schools to young students. So this, in fact, they are trying to include Mandarin language in the curriculum as well, but that has not been done yet. So this move has been seen as a soft yet powerful move by the China, as Beijing is always aware of the fact that language has been a barrier in Nepal, where Nepali and Hindi are of the same root. Like most of the Nepali population Hindi, they understand Hindi. So this is one of the reasons why China has been, trying to impose its influence here in the country. So I happen to, let me give you an example. Like I happened to visit a high school in Baneshwar, Kathmandu last year. And to my surprise, like a Chinese lady teacher was taking a Mandarin class, teaching Mandarin Chinese language to the students of grade 8. I was shocked. So when I asked her about the motive, so what she told me, if these students can understand Hindi, they can speak Hindi, why can't they learn Chinese language? So I was shocked. I responded to her saying Nepali and Hindi were quite similar, both Devanagari script. She, however, insisted that learning Mandarin was also quite easy, and even asked me to learning Mandarin will help me in the long run. I don't really understood what that long run meant. I didn't say anything, but in the evening I thought, what does it mean to say in the long run? That's it. Another episode I would like to refer here is, China, meanwhile, has been currently trying to at the moment. For instance, the year 2020 witnessed several, series of meetings by Chinese ambassador to Nepal Yankee with the Nepal Communist Party leaders, endeavoring, she was trying to avert the party split, and narrow down the differences between the top political leaders of the Nepal Communist Party. To quote, I would like to quote some, highly placed political personalities. What he said is China has not matter micromanagement in Nepal. Why can't China? So this is what they want here in Nepal. So yes, last year Nepal and India, as we all know, were engaged in a bitter row over the disputed areas of Lipu Lake, Kalapani and Limpiadura. And there were anti-India slogans everywhere in the streets of Kathmandu, even in other cities of Nepal, towns of Nepal, and other regions with like back of India sort of things, and Nepal even published a new map showing these areas as its part, as we all know this also. So this also pushed the relations between, the two countries. However, it has been, coming to, back to the track at the moment, I would say. So soon this also, a border road triggered between Nepal and China after Beijing Chinese side constructed 11 buildings in Humla, in the district of Humla in far western Nepal, which in Nepal claimed as its territory. So interestingly, the fact that China wants to create a strategic space in this Himalayan nation at the cost of India and other powers is evident from the way it showed its displeasure at Nepal's preparedness to accept the grant. I'm going beyond that. I think I'm going quite behind the issue. From grant from the MCC projects. Like Beijing, in fact, also appears to want to stretch the notion of a stable government in Nepal to mean a government that draws Nepal closer to China at the expense of Nepal's traditional relations with India. In fact, what I would like to say is one of our previous speakers, he talked about Nepalese Gorkha army and a significant number of pensioners in Nepal who have been receiving pensions from India. But what I want to say is not only that, Nepal's relations with India has been smooth despite all odds or say highs and lows. For example, I also belong to Nepal and several of my relatives are in India. And we share the same culture, we share the same language, religion, and whatnot. The must talk about open border, yes, has to be managed. I think not closed. It has to be managed. So, however, in recent times, China has been successful to some extent in souring Nepal-India relations, like mainly by adopting an approach to woo the Nepalese people, especially the cadres of the ruling Nepal Communist Party, with an anti-Indian sentiment. So even let me give an example. There was a massive mass assembly on Wednesday in the capital yesterday, organized by the ruling Nepal, not the ruling Nepal Communist Party, but the Prasanda Madhav Nepal-led Communist Party of Nepal. So the mass was really huge, and there was a Indian flag somewhere in between, in the mass rally. And when we were fact checking this, whether the Indian flag was real or photoshopped, later we found after fact check that the Indian flag was photoshopped. That was not real. So we even carried a news on that. So this is how, people or some elements have been playing against India in Nepal at the moment. So in order to, bring, disputes between the two friendly neighbors. So this is, to raise, anti-Indian sentiment in Nepal. In light of this stance, what has to be understood is Nepal's policy, motivation at China seems to be playing covertly in souring Nepal's relation with India by raising the terms, raising the issues of treaties or regulating border encroachments, or India is building high structures or build up structures along the border, and they have been raising the issue of inundation, among others, which sometimes force Nepalese people to look for other options, because China is well aware of the fact that Nepal has to tilt towards it if it is angered by the southern neighbor, India. Therefore, it is one of the reasons why Nepal's hardcore communists have been consistently alleging India of all the fuss and instability in Nepal. Even now, political leaders blame one another of dancing to the tunes of India, quote, without any valid evidence. So here, what I want to say is that China is trying to win the hearts and minds of the Nepalese people through some, strategic charity sort of thing. Therefore, I believe, that India has to be, or India needs to be proactive with innovative strategies and policies with Nepal by departing from its, what do you call it, like a traditional security angle. So firstly, identifying the cause of Nepal's behavior towards India. Why Nepal's communist government and the party resisting India while being welcoming to China? This, I think, has to be founded seriously. And I would like to raise is India should also introduce a new economic, developmental and infrastructure initiatives with Nepal that will address the vulnerabilities in Nepal, especially mainly Nepal's in the Nepal government's efforts of slogan of Happy Nepali, Prosperous Nepal. KPOD's, prime KPOD's, KPOD government slogan. However, despite all this, the ways it can. However, Nepal being a member of China's BRI project, India needs to deal with an assertive Chinese foreign policy. Since we all know that Nepal shares, like 1,400 Nepal. Hence, what I personally believe is, like India should ignore Nepal's anxieties as a smaller country in the bilateral relationship. Coming back to the same old BRI formula is that the 2015, like there was a blockade sort of thing imposed unofficial blockade imposed by India, like brought some changes in the geopolitics, thus, increasing China's interest as part of the BRI, among others, especially to like provide an economic alternative to reliance on India. So, and another aspect of one very important, or I would say significant, aspect in recent times between Nepal and Nepal and China is the visit of China's President Xi Jinping in October 2019, the first time in 23 years that a Chinese head of state making the visit. So what I think is, India and Nepal, they share, a porous border, and they share the same culture, the same religion, and the same, the similar language, everything. We have relatives here and there. So we also talked about the Gorkha regiment, the pensioners. And so we believe that Nepal-India relations should go ahead smoothly in the future as well. So with this, I would like to end my presentation, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. So actually, in fact, I had written a small message that today I'm in a rush because I have to, go to attend an interview. So, thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you so much, sir.
Whereas China, duplicity comes out very clearly. One is vaccine diplomacy, where they are trying to, this is the coercive diplomacy which they are applying against China. He also gave the example that of Mandarin introduction in the schools, which is trying to change the culture of Nepal. Probably they may fail in their effort, but nevertheless they are attempting. Chinese ambassador and Chinese foreign minister interfering at the political level is another example. Territorial dispute, this is the political dispensation is leaning towards China, and for their own good and for their own wanting their own for their own reasons. Open border, beautiful point which he has mentioned. He says open border needs to be managed, and some kind of a check and balances need to be introduced. Chinese effort to raise anti-Indian propaganda and sentiments need to be countered by India by using the groundswell which is existing there. Finally, the point which he has mentioned, that India needs to allay Nepal's anxiety on many issues. Case in point is that what has happened in 89-90 or 2015 should never happen, and India has to come out clean on this kind of things.